Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Benaker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. Kanchana, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea. It's a pleasure to talk to you about such a joyful topic.
Kanchana, you are a visionary leader who is reshaping business and investing in Africa through purpose-driven solutions. What is the personal why behind what you do?
So, Africa is probably the most underrated continent in the world because everybody thinks it's one country, first of all. There's 54 countries that make up this continent, and we tend to refer to it as Africa, And I think that diversity is what gives us such a beautiful story to tell about all these narratives happening on the continent. But for me personally, I like seeing the underdog win. And I guess Africa has always been seen as the underdog, right? And South Africa, specifically where I'm from, recently has been shining in many ways post-apartheid, post-Nelson Mandela. We have been starting to shine in many ways. We've just been voted the friendliest city of Cape Town by the world to come and visit. Cape Town also best city to come and visit in terms of nature. We've just had our athletics team come second in the 100-meter relay in the Olympics. Nobody even knew South Africa was even entering the Olympics. So, we're starting to shine on the stage. And Africa rising in all these ways is actually powerful and inspirational for anybody in the country. And as much as South Africa itself has a lot of really premium luxury places to visit, we've got a really large population that's in poverty. And for the underdog to win, everybody has to be able to rise together. So I think for me, the why is how do we make more people get inspired to want to also lift themselves out of this poverty-stricken mindset that we currently have, which is very fear-based and very focused on blaming people versus taking onus upon yourself to make your life better. So I'm very involved in the why of helping people to recognize that they have the solutions within them and then taking themselves into account and the power that they have to be able to change their own lives.
And when you envision Africa and South Africa as a global powerhouse, what does the future look like to you, and how does it align with your mission at Nova Ideation?
The powerhouse that is Africa is actually broken down because of our corrupt leaders and the people in power. We could actually serve a much better agenda if greed wasn't so profound in the modus operandi of the people in power. The future to me looks extremely progressive because young people getting involved don't want to see this hierarchical structure that we currently find in Africa. They want to break those silos and become creators of their own destiny. And at Nova Ideation, we believe that we can't solve 21st century problems with 20th century thinking. So these old leaders need to change. And the way we need to do that is to embrace technology and meet it at the point where technology and humanity can actually meet each other to create something more profound, purposeful, and scalable. And at Nova Ideation, the idea is that we understand the power of the people within our country, and we want people to understand that there is a much bigger picture than the small life. So how do we help catalyze and mobilize more people to join together and collaborate for this change we want to see within not only our country, but in the continent as well. So where Nova Ideation comes in is that we are looking to create tech platforms that are African solutions for African problems. Because what we're very good at is bringing in this Western solution and saying, I'm sure that'll work here because it's worked everywhere else. But we have a very unique set of circumstances in Africa. So we need to solve problems for the type of future we want to see. And this type of future doesn't have space for corrupt leaders. It doesn't have space for people who are breaking our country down. And what we want to do is build more people up, inspire more people to take and have agency over their lives through the type of technology platforms that we build.
And I noticed that you're very focused also on empowering female entrepreneurs. why do you believe that investing in women is key to transforming the future economic landscape?
I think, Andrea, as a woman, you already know this answer, but you
Yes,
know,
I'm
I think
curious to get
women,
your view.
women are the backbone of most societies. You know, there's this ripple effect that happens. There's tons of studies on this. And one of the key things that affected me powerfully many years ago is when I heard about the Grameen Bank and what Mohammed Yunus did for micro lending with women in Bangladesh and how he transformed an entire economy by giving women microloans. I did start my women empowerment journey with a bank called Itala Bank, which was working with SMEs, so very micro businesses like fruit and veg vendors and people who were doing catering in townships. And we created an award and reward system called the Mbogoros, which is a basic sisterhood of bringing people together to learn and to be, mentored. And we started with 150 people in the year that I started the project. And I think now it's something like 20,000 women who are part of that network. I'm no longer involved in it, but that was what we catalyzed. And what they realized is how many families were actually empowered by the people that were taken out of poverty by just little microloans in this space as well. And then by women getting together and talking, it started to lead to them having more power to talk back to the men in their lives that were actually coming in and sometimes taking their money and trying to take their livelihoods because many of these men were abusive or would be drunk, spending the money on alcohol rather than on the children. So there's lots of those social ills that women understand probably a little bit better because they are the caretakers and the nourishers of the children going forward. So they sometimes are better at handling money, especially at different levels of the pyramid, bottom of the pyramid especially. And the one thing we do find is that when you empower a woman, you almost empower entire family and the community. So it's a lot more empowering for female entrepreneurs to break the cycle of poverty, of inequality, and to foster inclusive economic growth. And that's why I focus more on that.
And I was wondering if you could tell us about a pivotal moment that has shaped your view on life and also on joy.
I had a near death experience when I was quite young. I was thrown out of a car. I think I was 23 years old. And at the time, with everything in front of me, I just had got a job at Unilever in my 20s. It was a new job as a brand manager, very exciting. And I think a little bit too much excitement, too much partying, sort of makes you feel invincible when you're young. And ended up having this car accident, which was actually my fault, and got thrown out of this car, like literally hit against a wall. The car door opened, seatbelt, wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And funnily, the nurse that was from the hospital was actually behind me in the traffic. And she said she saw this like almost like a white piece of paper that flew out of the car and hit the wall. And she was like wondering what was that. And when she came closer, she realized it was me. That's how fast this thing all happened. And she said, it's almost impossible. I actually didn't think anyone could survive that. And yet, I only had 2 or 3 bones broken in my toes. I had a few like big burns from scraping the floor, a few teeth, you know, not one thing that happened to my face, not one bone broken, hands, legs, nothing. I had recovery for about 2.5 months just to, do all the pins in the toes and rehab and all of those type of things. But what happened after that was that I started realizing that living your life on anyone else's terms just doesn't make you joyful. And I wasn't happy in a corporate environment. I wasn't happy working for somebody else. I just thought, hey, I want my time to be my own. I want my life to be my own. And from that age, I started then becoming an entrepreneur, jumped out, opened my own businesses, decided I wanted to have my own time. Um, and that already started making me more joyful. Then I, as part of rehabilitation, started yoga and enjoyed a few classes, just getting into it, understanding the practice. And when I then decided I wanted to move to Cape Town for a little while, ended up taking the practice on a little bit more seriously because there were a lot more practitioners around. And I started with Bikram yoga, started understanding what, this hot yoga was about, what vinyasa was about, and then decided, okay, I'm moving back to Durban. I want to open something of my own and go into wellness. And I became a yoga teacher. And when I was on this journey to becoming a yoga teacher, I just realized that there's so much more to life than a job and your title and the things that we hold on to every single day that we think defines us. And when you start practicing yoga and more meditation and you get into this world of well-being and spirituality, you start learning that joy is not what you do, it's who you are. And for me, that moment of a near death experience probably gave me this want to go deeper into understanding what actually makes humans truly happy and what gives us the most amount of happiness and fulfillment while we're here. So the pivotal moment for me was a near death experience, I guess.
How incredible that you walked away with such little trauma, let's just say physical
So
trauma.
little
I would have thought maybe, I mean, even the fact that you had no head
scars,
concussion or scars, it's mind blowing.
nothing.
And I mean, I'm so happy that it all turned well for you. And this brings me to the question about purpose, right? Because when you have such a life altering event in your life, you start thinking about why is it that I'm still here alive, and what is my purpose? Can you tell us about the journey that you've embarked on to find your purpose, and what is your purpose today?
The thing about it is that it always alters and shifts and changes, and you start redefining yourself at different ages of your life. And I used to always think it's one thing. And the funny thing about where I am right now is I fundamentally believe that I want to experience myself in the most fulfilled, in the most joyful, in the most experiential way that you can possibly imagine. I want to fully understand what this human potential is about. And whether it's doing the biggest, craziest projects that I can attempt, or it's about pushing my body a little bit further than it ever could go before, or whether it's creating something that's going to help a million people, I feel limitless. And I think the purpose of life is to unlock the power of being limitless as a human. And however you do that, whether you do it through your meditation, whether you do it through your physical activity, whether you do it through your work, I think humans are trying to express themselves in all these ways. And for me, the limitlessness is what's actually become my purpose recently in everything that I
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so much power in that word, limitless. How do we encourage our listeners to find that same mindset? Are there specific practices? How can they take the first few steps so they can also embrace that limitless mindset?
it's taken me a while to get here. And I'll tell you why? Because as humans, we are profoundly hardwired to the belief that we have to live in fear, in stress, in negativity, in competitiveness. And we forget that our true nature is actually creation. We came from a creation, we are a creation, and we should be living in creation, right? And expression. And we should be living in this love and abundance and happiness and joy. That's actually our true state. But over the years, society has conditioned us to realize that, hey, this abnormal state that we're living in, which is stress and anger and negativity, that's become normality in the world. So the first thing is to, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, if your thoughts can make you sick, your thoughts can make you well. So if you start embracing thoughts of limitlessness and you start embracing thoughts of well-being and happiness and joy and fulfilling your purpose and destiny in life, the mind must be able to create this, because at the end of the day, we are the creators of our destiny. So the first part is to change how you think about life. Everything is in our power. The journey is yours. And I think that's fundamental to what every listener needs to understand, is that you are not out of control. You are in control of your life. And as soon as we start taking control and realize that we are the makers, we are the creators, everything around you will start changing. And that's the first part I started with, is what life do I want to create, literally writing it down, and then taking the steps to action that life. And suddenly one day you realize, oh, wow, okay, I can bring these people together. It's just like what you're doing with your podcast or with your book or with the people that you get. You've also got that limitless nature. And I don't want people to ever think you need a near death experience like you've also had to be able to do that. You can tap into that now. You can tap into that limitless feeling because we are part of the universe. The universe is part of us. We are infinite energy. So, infinite energy to create anything that we want is the power that we have as humans. That's why we were here. Is that, don't you want to see what you can create? Don't you want to see who you can be? And I think that's one thing that held me back when I was in corporate was, you can't be anything more if you are in a 9 to 5, you know. But when you're on your own and you're creating and you're thinking and you're in the space of just, wow, what's possible? What's the next thing? Then it's a very different space that you're in. And I think humans can all decide that for themselves.
And as you're designing the future that is limitless, there's an African proverb that actually says if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
It's something I actually believe in. And, I think, the network of people that I shared much of my life with at Innate. And they used to always say I'm like the chief bridge builder and connector. Because for me, collaboration over competition always. And just collaborating and doing things with people you like, that's been fundamental, I think, to the joy of life, is do things with people that you like, join people on a journey that makes you happy. After all, what is the point of just stressing yourself out with people who make you unhappy? It's just, there's no reason. Your own partner, your own children, make them people that you like. Help them to become somebody that you like, that are you a person that you like at the end of the day? And these are the types of things we need to keep reminding ourselves of, that when we go far together, who do we want to go with, and how do we want to show up in those relationships as well? And I think that's for work, that's for your friendships, that's for your family. If people don't bring you joy, why are you spending your time with them? And I think this is the big thing about what that proverb says, is if you want to go far, go together. But I also want to add, go far together with people you like.
Because in the end it's all about the journey, right? And enjoying the journey with people that you like and that bring you joy and that lift you up and that have that positive energy and a sense of
Completely.
exploration and shared curiosity, because that's, I think, the power and the beauty that comes through collaboration.
I think, it's also, apart from going on the journey and going with people that you like, you tend to build more trust with these people, right? So they trust each other. And there's this spirit of like, hey, even if it fails, it's cool. We did it together. And I've had many things fail and I've lost tons of money. And I'm just like, hey, you know what? It's cool. We can do this because we had a great experience. And if your experience of life is you're experimenting with it, then we had a great experiment and we learned a lot.
Exactly. And it's all about the learning, as you've just said. It's not about letting those failures shape who we are or bring us down. It's rather to look at those experiences as gifts that have now given us more tools and more insights and more wisdom so we can actually rise higher and go further in the future. So I think that's very, very exciting. This brings me to another question that I wanted to ask you. If you could fast forward 10 years from now, what is one groundbreaking change or innovation you hope to see in Africa or in our world driven by the work that you're currently doing?
I really wish people would stop talking so much and start doing more. We've got a lot of people who talk a lot. A lot of people who say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And not many people who can. We talk about the word collaboration all the time, but nobody knows how to collaborate because everybody's egos gets involved. Nobody knows how to come together and do something when it's individualistic and in silos. And no one understands that actually by doing things together, we learn how each other works. We learn trust, we learn integrity, we learn all of these things that help us to be able to make a better decision for business that can progress. And in Africa, especially, we've got this very ego driven, hierarchical, patriarchal type of leadership. And if we want to go further in 10 years, that all has to be broken down so that we can start collaborating in a way that's going to make us a lot more progressive than we are today. Um, Another thing I think for Africa specifically is that, we keep talking about who, people are going to save us and the grant mentality and governments giving you money. But, you know, we have to take responsibility for ourselves. We also have to be in it to go, I know that I have the power to change. I know that I can, through doing things a little bit better, I can make my life a little bit better. So I think for me, in the next 10 years, if we can see less people talking, more people doing, real collaboration happening, and people taking care of their own destiny and agency over their own lives, that would be an Africa that I would be 100% behind.
Given you're originally from Indian descent, living now in South Africa, can you share with us how your cultural heritage has shaped in any way the beliefs and the values that you hold today?
So, yeah, as I said, I'm second generation Indian. So I have the genetics of these hardworking Indians. But I actually lived in South Africa my whole life. I've been born here. But culture in South Africa for Indian people is huge. The Indian community is very well networked with each other. And when we were younger, I think we celebrated a lot of cultural events together, like Diwali and Prachasi and all the different festivals and all of that. But I think what we learned was a sense of community and helping each other. And that value system, whether you take it into other projects that you do, creating a sense of community has been something that probably comes naturally to me because that was my culture and my heritage. I think also in the Indian culture, you do learn a lot about yoga and you do learn a lot about meditation. It is there if we want to access it. But we don't end up accessing it. And I actually had to learn this while I was doing my yoga teacher training about the culture of yoga coming from a lineage of Hinduism and started learning more about my own religion and culture through a practice that I chose. And it's so fascinating that the world embraces these things. And sometimes you don't know it about yourself and your own culture because you tend to lose some of it as you move to different countries or, you in a different space. But I do feel that our community values is something that's always been well ingrained in me. I think the Indian community is extremely entrepreneurial. My dad's an entrepreneur. My grandfathers were entrepreneurs, and I think that DNA runs through me. And I probably am in a circle of almost all my friends who are entrepreneurs. I don't think any of them work for corporates or, for other people. And it's just been something in our DNA, I think. And it comes from culture. I think we can call it culture because a lot of Indian people do have this very, very strong entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that part has been infused in me, definitely.
When we're looking at entrepreneurs on a global scale, given that you've been part of, an entrepreneur family and a lot of the people that you connect with are entrepreneurs, a lot of studies on a global level indicate that there's a very strong problem with mental health issues among entrepreneurs because of the intensity, because of the various challenges that come with that lifestyle. And clearly, it's not for everyone. What have you learned about maintaining your overall mental, emotional, and physical well being in the process of navigating the world of entrepreneurship?
I think when I was younger and in entrepreneurship, I had a very different view of what entrepreneurship and startup culture and all of that was all about. Because it was always like sleep when you're dead, burn the midnight oil. It was like if you're not at your computer and you're not working and you're not flying and you're not doing this, then you're not working. And it was this cult of being busy versus the cult of being productive. And I think that's been one of the ways in which I've reframed how I think about it is to be able to do things that are not putting you in a hamster wheel to do, but do things that are valuable. And I think in entrepreneurship specifically, it's a lone wolf type of role because you're the one doing everything and you're the business manager and the CFO until you can get to a point where you can employ people to do that and to have practices and people around you that you can consult. I've been very lucky in that I've had many mentors around me. I've had people in industry who remain my good friends who I could always call upon. But to always have that network of mentorship around you is super important so that you don't feel alone. Second thing is your health. You can't do anything without good health. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't function, and you know this, if you're in a hospital bed or something debilitating happens to you, there's nothing you can do. So health comes first before anything. So for me, it's up in the morning. I meditate an hour to 45 minutes to an hour. I'm on the beach doing a walk or a run. I train in the afternoon. And those are like 3 hours of my own time within the 24. And then it's 8 hours of sleep, So those are non-negotiable hours for me personally. And then to eat some good meals, have good relationships of friends around you, and don't think that work is the only thing that you need to do in life, because life is multifaceted. Your career is one very small piece of the pie. And I think entrepreneurship gets this bad rap, like you've got to work until, you almost burnt out completely. Then you've got a badge of honor, And I think that view is changing around the world, that, without your well-being, you can't actually be in business. So I think the advice is to keep your health 100%, reframe how you think about busyness and productivity and value. And, at the end of the day, you'd rather be alive than dead when it comes to your health, especially, to make the money that you need and create the things that you want.
You mentioned earlier that on this journey, you've also had some challenges, some projects that did not necessarily go as planned. So, how do you find joy amidst life challenges?
I think I've matured a lot, and I understand now more than anything, it's about doing the thing you can to the best of your ability, and not being attached to the outcome of what happens, and not being attached to the result of what happens, because life is not fair. There are lots of people who work harder than all of us in sugarcane fields and driving trucks and doing manual labor, and they don't get paid half, what they are worth. Teachers are doing the same. So you can't be attached to the outcome of how hard you work, because at the end of the day, it's not equal. The society is not equal, and you cannot be attached to an outcome that you can't control. And for many, many, many years, I think actually until last year or the year before, I was very, very much wanting to control what happens at the end. And unfortunately, that is not up to us. And I think the more meditation I've done, the more I've realized that you cannot be attached. You do your best, you go at it as hard as you can, you prove everything that you possibly can when you are in that situation. You build great big visions, and I've done that many times. And when it works, it's beautiful and it's happy and it's joyful. But when it doesn't work, you get a wonderful lesson at the end of it. Unfortunately, while you're in it, it's not the easiest thing. You are depressed and debilitated and, oh, woe is me, and all of this. And then a few months later, you come out and you realize, hey, there's a lot of learnings. And if you're just going to lie down and say, no, no more for me, you're actually going to kill the spirit of creativity within yourself. And then, hey, you're not as limitless as you thought. So that's what I've been telling myself. Every time something works, wow, wonderful, great. But equanimity, it's a Buddhist principle. Basically, how do you react to something? If it's pleasurable, as humans, we always want to be extremely happy. If it's not pleasurable, we want to be extremely sad. But we should be equanimous, which is, we react to it in the same way, whether it's good or bad. And that's what failure and success is all about. You're going to have failures, you're going to have success. It's how you react to it.
How do you define success from what you do every day?
I think it's to remain very, very grounded in everything that you do without allowing yourself to get overly overwhelmed by something or underwhelmed by something. And for me, it's the spiritual response to life that has become my biggest success. Is how do you define a life that's well lived? And the life well lived for me right now is a life that is healthy, wealthy, well, thriving, abundant, fearless, limitless. For me, that is success. Relationships that are wonderful, living happily and joyfully and in creativity. For me, that's fundamental success. It's not money. It used to be money and titles, and the ego used to rule what is success. But now I'm very much into the fact that my health is my greatest success. And the wealth in my life is my relationships, my family, my friends, and the quality of relationships that I have that have helped me feel successful as a human today.
Thank you so much for sharing that. What do you hope will be the long term impact of your work, and how do you envision your legacy?
There was a point where I thought, one person can change the world. And I realized that's obviously not possible. And when you're young, you do believe these things, you come out with like, if I could do this. And you actually need a lot of people to do it. So the first thing I would think is legacy is sometimes connected to our egos more than anything else. So I think more than legacy, I would say continuation or building of some sort of catalytic way of thinking. That would be something that I could leave behind. There's this Japanese saying, if you chase after two hares, you never catch any one of them. So I want to be involved in projects that are big effect, big impact because we focused and we did them well. And to show people that it's possible that by collaborating, we can do things well and we can build bigger things and we can make wonderful impact in people's lives. So for me, the legacy conversation is less around my name or anything like that, but more in the continuation of type of effort in making real meaningful transformation through the work I do.
Beautiful. And final question, what do you believe we need to do collectively to bring more joy and harmony into our world?
I think we need to take ownership of our own peace. Each of us. We need to take ownership of our own joy. What we do as a society is outsource joy, outsource blame, outsource why my life is looking like this. And we don't fundamentally go in and think it's us. And as soon as we start realizing that peace begins with you, and when you change your reality in the world's reality changes, I think we start experiencing life very, very differently. So for me, if more people took agency and control of their own lives and understood that if you want to be peaceful in the world, if you want to be joyful in the world, if you want to be somebody who shows up as a person that inspires in the world, you have to become that. And when you become it, everything around you starts transforming. I heard this beautiful saying that said, if you want to get butterflies, don't chase them with a butterfly hook. Become a butterfly garden and they'll come to you. And the fundamentals of life is if you create the butterfly garden within, all of life's reality changes and suddenly everything starts being joyful or peaceful or whatever it is that you've changed yourself to become. So for me, that's what I believe we should do collectively and individually.
And all those beautiful words. Kanchana, it's been an immense pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
It's an absolute pleasure. And I wish you all the success in 1 more million years of joy.
Thank you.